Hello and welcome to another episode of Rockford on the Record. I'm Wally Haas, your host for this program. With me today is Kyle Saunders. He's the Public Works Director for the City of Rockford. So Kyle, on my way here, there were a lot of construction signs, detours, all kinds of stuff. What's going on in the city?
Yeah, it's really busy this time of the year. So right about now, a lot of our construction projects in the city of Rockford are ramping up. A couple weeks ago, we awarded more than $5 million worth of construction work. We've got roadway resurfacing, we've got bridge reconstructions, we've got water main replacement, we've got sidewalk improvements throughout the entire city of Rockford. We're in year one of our next 5-year capital improvement program, and we're looking to make a pretty big impact. We're trying to improve more than $250 million worth of public infrastructure.
Now, this is the largest capital improvements program in the city's history, is that correct?
That is correct. It's a big one.
Okay, so there are so many different things going on, under the general heading of infrastructure, and you mentioned a lot of those things. So, for the average resident of Rockford, I just want my street fixed. Okay, how can I tell when that's going to happen?
Yeah, so our capital improvement program, it is a 5-year rolling plan. So, every year we carve out kind of that next year. So we're already planning for 2023. We work with all of our aldermen. We work with all of our community partners to kind of identify, obviously, the various priorities throughout the city. We work to implement that plan and try to kind of prioritize as much as we can. Obviously, there's way more need than there are resources. So it's a very fluid process. We do have a lot of great resources on our website. Our rockfordil.gov website actually has a link to our capital improvement program where if you're a curious resident, you can log on, kind of pan to your address, and you can see all the various improvements that are going to be going on in your neighborhood.
How many miles of road is the city responsible for?
So it's kind of shattering when you think, or earth shattering when you think of it. We maintain more than 1,700 pavement miles. So when you think of just the various streets throughout the city, there is a ton of work to be done. On top of that 1,700 miles of pavement we maintain, we also have more than 800 miles of sidewalk. So when you look at the various bridges, the more than 30,000 inlets that we maintain throughout the city, it's almost too numerous to count at times.
So the sidewalks, if the sidewalk in front of my house is crumbling and cracks and uneven, what do I do?
So you can submit a service request online, much like you would with anything else, whether it's a pothole, whether it's a forestry request, whether it's something from the community standard side. If you submit a request online, our team will be notified. We'll go out and inventory that area. We'll identify all the needs from trip hazards to accessibility concerns, and we'll work to program that in. Obviously, with the more than 800 miles, it does take sometimes, depending on the nature of the request, 1 maybe 2 years to program that, but our engineering team is working very diligently to be able to turn those requests around just as quickly as we can.
Okay. And now, people who know me know that I like to bicycle a lot and I like to ride paths. So what's the city's responsibility on bike paths?
Yeah, and that's a really exciting addition to our CIP. So about a year ago, we brushed off our 10-year bikeway plan, and we actually renewed it for the next 10 years. And one of the priorities that we saw was the need for increased investment. So we were spending anywhere from 50 cents to $1 per resident on bikeway infrastructure. We've ramped that up to $2. Understanding that that $300,000 annual amount is really going to help support additional signage, additional pavement markings, additional bikeway network adds. So that's something. The last 10 years we made a pretty big splash in terms of adding a bunch of additional miles. We're really going to try to focus on educating both bicyclists and drivers in terms of where our bike routes are, as well as adding some pretty key strategic connections to our overall bikeway network.
So a few times you've used the word priorities. How are those priorities determined?
Yeah, so we balance several different needs, obviously, when we're programming our CIP. I mentioned that public infrastructure is the backbone of everything we do in the city. So whether it's the movement of trucks, obviously how that supports commerce, certainly economic development opportunities, certainly looking at infrastructure condition. Some of our oldest areas of town need some of the most investment. So trying to weigh all of those different needs, certainly looking at accessibility accessibility, making sure that all of our residents can gain access to that public infrastructure, and really working with obviously our elected officials to make sure that we're balancing all those different needs as best we can.
What are some of the trends in, public works today as far as what should be done with roads and sidewalks? How are those built, and then how are they maintained?
Yeah, so obviously there's a big need for renewal of our infrastructure. So that's something that we're looking at, trying to kind of align the condition of that infrastructure with what type of treatment we're going to develop. So not every road's created equal. Some are already too far gone in their useful life, so we're trying to program reconstructions. Some of those are right in that right lifespan where we can actually just mill off the top few inches, put a new 2-inch surface on, and we can get another 15 to 20 years out of that road. One thing that we are looking at very heavily is preservation. So not only renewing that infrastructure, but finding ways to preserve those investments. So whether it be crack sealing, whether it be seal coating, there's a lot of very innovative technologies and treatments that we're currently looking into, so that we can kind of balance the need for reconstruction with also preservation. So that's a huge thing that our engineering team's looking at. Another big trend that we're seeing, especially on the water infrastructure side, is the need for ramping up some of that high-risk water main replacement. Our water utility was founded in 1875, and we're finding out that water main will last 100 years, but not very many years after that. So we have a lot of need on the distribution system to make sure that we're prioritizing some of those more high-risk water main replacements.
Okay, and most of those would be in the older sections of the city?
Yeah, and to be honest, those are spread out throughout the entire city. So downtown certainly is where our city was formed, so we have some really old, large diameter water main there, but also some of our older neighborhoods. They certainly have older water main that we've had quite a few main breaks. There's the presence of lead service lines that we're trying to prioritize for replacement. So our water team's really busy trying to serve all the different areas of the city.
Yeah. So going back to roads for a minute, concrete versus asphalt, how do you determine what road gets built with what?
Yeah, so there's a lot of engineering, judgment and engineering design that goes into that. Certainly we're looking at what type of traffic is that road going to handle in terms of both volume and types. So if it's an area that's going to see a lot of truck traffic, we have to make sure that that pavement can support that. The other thing we look at is obviously what is that pavement going to look like in terms of number of lane miles. And with all of our reconstruction efforts, we're looking at life cycle costs. So, what is the most cost-effective construction for that application? Prime example, Charles Street. That's a big road that we're looking to reconstruct this year. Our team went through and looked at, should it be asphalt? Should it be concrete? Should it be 4 lanes? Should it be 3 lanes? There's a lot of different engineering design standards that we employ to be able to build that final project.
Okay, so what was the outcome then on Charles Street?
So Charles Street will be a 3-lane section, and it will be made of concrete.
Okay, so it'll be a lot quicker to go through town that way.
So it'll certainly provide the ability to add some active transportation networks. So we're looking to install a multi-use path on the south side of Charles. It'll also provide for a safer section of road. What we like to do we call it a road diet, where you've got 1 lane in each direction and a center left turn lane, kind of prevents some of those left turning movement accidents as well as rear ending accidents. So we feel overall it kind of calms traffic, it creates a safer driving environment for our drivers, and certainly allows for that installation of active transportation.
So you've talked about a heck of a lot of work going on in the city right now. How does it get paid for?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, I mentioned that there seems to be infinite need and limited resources. On the roadway side, we have 2 primary funding sources. It's our 1% infrastructure sales tax, and then it's proceeds from motor fuel tax, and that's actually administered by the state of Illinois. That 1% infrastructure sales tax is so huge to our CIP. It represents more than 70% of our annual funding for that program. One thing that we really we realized this most recent round of looking at our different funding sources is that 1% sales tax that we see, more than 30% of that revenue is actually generated from people outside of the city of Rockford. It's anybody that obviously travels to Rockford, visits Rockford, and obviously pays that sales tax. So we generate about $16 to $17 million a year, and when you look at the 9 different program chapters, we look to spend all of that on an annual basis. We certainly do roll over some fund balances to plan plan for some really large projects, but on an annual basis, we're looking to program as much of that funding as we can to make sure that we're touching every part of the city.
Now, that sales tax was a referendum approved by the voters, and it needs to be reapproved every 5 years, is correct?
That is correct.
And when's it come up again?
So I believe the next time is 2027.
2027. So from what Kyle has told us, the money that you approved for the city to use through that sales tax is being put to pretty good use. And when it comes up again in 2027, we got some time yet. You don't have to think about it right now. But when it comes up again, I would encourage you to vote yes to continue the wonderful work that's being done in the city. Thank you very much, Kyle. Thank you very much for watching this. I'm Wally Haas. Have a good day.